Good morning, everybody. Welcome here. We're so glad that you've joined us. This morning, we are joined by John and Sue Chalkis from Seeds of Hope Ministry. Welcome here. I'm really excited to spend this morning because I've heard some of your stories before. I've seen your ministry, some updates in the past few years. A lot of people who are part of Cedar Valley know you guys, have seen the ministry too, and it's really inspiring seeing God at work all around the world in incredible ways.
Yeah.
So, thanks for joining us this morning. And we're here just doing part of our international ministries and partnerships, some updates that we're going to be doing. Last month, we talked with Pamela Hugi, and this morning we're talking Seeds of Hope, and we'll be doing that in another month from now. So stay tuned for that. But in a big way, introduce us to yourselves. For those of you who haven't met you before, what's your connection here at Cedar Valley, and what is Seeds of Hope?
Well, I just saying to Grant this morning, we're really excited to be here because this used to be our home church for almost 20 years. We used to live down the street, and when we started Seeds of Hope, we were right here. And this Cedar Valley was a huge part in encouraging us, praying for us, sending us out, filling our hockey bags full of supplies. And eventually we had teams from Cedar Valley. So we're thrilled to be here today. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the first place you guys ended up then? Like when you say, sent out, where'd you guys go?
Thailand.
Okay.
Yeah, we started in Thailand in 1995.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's been a
friend had shared a letter with me. She wanted to open an orphanage for HIV kids. That was before medication. And I remember I got some ladies from Cedar Valley in the basement together, and I did a talk, and that was our seed money. And so Cedar Valley is a huge part of Seeds of Hope. It's really the foundation.
Cool. So tell me more about that. Was it just a letter about wanting to start, or like what was the first thing that inspired wanting to do this?
Well, my neighbor, her family have a business in Thailand. And so they had lived there, and while they were living there, they met a missionary couple, and they had adopted a child from a local government orphanage. So that missionary every Wednesday used to volunteer in the government orphanage. And she noticed that a lot of kids that were coming in had HIV. And at that time, total fear. There was no medication. Yeah, the stigma to HIV. So these babies were not even given a crib. They were laid on rubber mats in the hallway, and they were just no diapers. They were just hosed down.
And that was it.
Right.
Because they're not going to make it, was the assumption.
Right. Broke this missionary's heart. She wanted to, I'm giving you the short version. She wanted to open an orphanage just for these kids, specifically for these HIV kids. And so she wrote my neighbor a letter and saying, you know what, I really want to open an orphanage. Do you know a rich person? I need $23,000. And so I took the letter and I wrote her back and I said, you don't know me, but I'm Faith's neighbor and I'm going to raise you the money. And so that started bottle drives, baked apple pies, speaking at Cedar Valley.
Cool.
That was the beginning.
That's really cool. How have you felt God equip you to take on just a different, uncomfortable kind of path or calling like that?
I think it's been amazing, actually. When I reflect and I look back, I see a puzzle, and I see that God gave just one piece at a time. I think if God gave,
we saw the whole picture.
we would have went running. We would have said, no, this is not us. There's no way we can just do this, just normal two people. But, then John got on board and so it was like one piece at a time.
Now that you've been, 1995, so 25 years later, what does some of that whole picture now start looking like? Where is Seeds of Hope at? Because I know you said it started in Thailand, but I know that it's a few other places. Where's Seeds of Hope now?
Yeah, well, we've grown. We have ministries in Myanmar, which is the neighboring country. We have ministry in Zambia, which is our biggest project, and we have over 200 kids, 83 full-time staff. We have our own school from preschool to grade 12. We have a scholarship program. A lot of our kids that have graduated are in university now. We have over 40 kids in post-secondary education, including 4 or 5 in medical school, one in just graduated engineering degree. We have one in law school. We have several in nursing. We have one in getting a business degree. So And these are kids, this is the amazing thing. These are kids that nobody wanted. These are kids that the actual term the social welfare uses is dumped kids, because their family didn't want them because of HIV, and they were afraid of them and the stigma, and they couldn't afford to care for them, and they were dumped. And there was no future for them. No one expected any good to come out of them. And all these kids are in university.
Wow.
And our vision is to raise leaders so they can impact their nation with the same grace, and they receive from God the same blessing, that they can be a blessing to their communities. And we're starting to see that happen right now as they're graduating, as they're getting married. Seeds of Hope is, we love the name. It's just like a seed that you plant. At first, you don't see anything happening. Then the seed will sprout and break through the ground, and you support it with a stick, and you water it and you feed it. And it takes time. But after a while, that seed will grow and bear fruit. And we're just at that point where our kids are going to bear fruit. And we're really excited about it.
One of the most exciting things that happened recently is 2 of our kids who grew up together just got married.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that was
exciting.
in March.
That's exciting. And yeah, like Seeds of Hope, like you're saying, when you have kids that the world essentially discards, dumb kids, that is a heartbreaking term. But every story is miraculous and redemptive, right? So God works miracles in everybody's lives. But when you have something like that where like society, it's just like this contrast of like what God can do and what the world has discarded.
Right, absolutely.
I love that.
And that's probably the thing that drives us, is to see redemption over and over again. God just redeeming these lives that people have cast away and see what God can do with them. Wow. It's amazing. It's thrilling and empowering to us. It just energizes us.
One thing that I think is on a lot of our minds, especially knowing the Zambia ministry, so like that is COVID-19 has been this like global pandemic. It's been everywhere. How has that affected some of the Seeds of Hope ministries, or even your guys' work with the ministry?
For John and I, everything that has been normal in fundraising has changed. So we can't go into churches anymore. And we couldn't do our cross-country tour, which is huge. We couldn't do our ladies' tea, which we have done every year, and we just miss those ladies. It was probably my favorite fundraiser.
We did that right here, actually.
Yeah, Cedar Valley. So that's hard. And, our banquet is what keeps us going throughout the year, and we can't do that. So we're having a gala soon. So please sign up for our gala. You can do it on our website. And we're having a huge auction too. And so there's all directions on our website how to do that. But probably that's how it's affected us. But on the other side, we have Shannon and Dave Dirksen, who are part of this church, and their kids, Trinda and Evan. And they've been locked down since March. So, you know what? I think I feel more for them than I do for us, because, they don't have the comforts of their home. They don't have their family. They don't, they really are. I mean, they have each other, but yeah. So I would say.
And for the communities where we serve, they've been hard hit.
Yeah.
Their people have lost jobs. People are probably literally starving to death.
And not the infrastructure for social support. Like
there's none of that, right? So
one of our ministries that we have in Zambia is we do a feeding program at a local school, and we've had to reduce. And she said to me, "Please, Susan, can you still help us, because we still need to feed our kids, but our money is down." So we're like, "Oh, how are we going to do this?" But pray God will make this successful, and we'll be able to continue to carry on supporting them.
Yeah, I was saying, what are some other projects or things that are upcoming for Seeds of Hope that you're working on right now?
Well, we are really excited that in Thailand, at our project there, Rays of Hope, we are starting 2 new homes. A girls' home and a boys' home, Banazara, which means Freedom House, and Banun Rock, which means House of Love. And these are going to be for trafficked kids. So we're hoping to open up in spring of next year. The houses are the first house is done. Second house is almost finished. And we just have to get all the protocols and things sent. But, we've been in touch. John and I did an exploratory trip last year where we met with the police, social workers, traffic task force, different organizations that are doing this, just to see if there was a great need, because there's so many people doing it. And what we heard was that our responses that we got was that there's a lot of people rescuing the kids, but nowhere to house them.
There's a lot of organizations involved with the police that do the rescues, but what happens to these kids once the rescue happens is there's no place for them to go. They can't go back to their families. A lot of times it's their families that sold them in the first place, which is mind-boggling for me to think. So what happens is they end up going into government orphanages, and there's no help for them. These kids have been traumatized. They need special counseling. They need special care, and they end up in these institutions where they continue in drug use, and they eventually leave after they hit 18, and with no help and no resources to re-enter into society, and they end up going back into that lifestyle because that's all they know. But addiction and trafficking.
But the big thing that we have to offer in a Buddhist country is Jesus.
Right.
And he redeems, he heals, and he transforms lives. So we're going to have a full-time counselor. And, you know, people told us in Zambia that, you know what, why were we helping these kids? And look, they're, you know, God has redeemed them. And so we're believing for the same results with these kids. We're starting with kids 10 and under.
Right.
And that's what, just want to add on to that. Yeah, why are you helping HIV kids? They're going to die. What's the point? No, they're living. God is a God of life. And they're living. And then in 2005, we got the medication, which means that they can live a normal lifespan. And not only are they living, they're thriving. And we want to do the same thing for these kids.
Yeah.
Is this way more than just providing a place to stay, a roof, right? Like,
No, we wouldn't do it if it was just a place to stay.
Sex trafficking has got to be one of the darkest things that we've
from the pit of
been
hell
able to create as mankind. And like nothing can redeem that except for the gospel.
Absolutely.
Amen. That's right.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and what you're even saying there is there's more redemptive work than just simply people, the kids who come into the ministry. Like there's redemption and miracles happening there, but then the effect it has on the culture around, creating a different dialogue that like every person is precious, and you see that through God's eyes. Yeah.
And you see God doing the impossible.
Yeah, the impossible is that's the definition of a miracle, right? That's only able to be done through God.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, with exactly on that, how can we then as Cedar Valley support that initiative that's going forward, or Seeds of Hope in general? Like
sign up for the gala, sign up for the auction.
Okay. So that's the big one, and that's what,
and pray.
And what's a bit of the hard information on that? When is that happening, the gala?
It's the 22nd, and everything's on seedsofhopecm.com.
Okay.
And there's all, like, it's the very front page is how to, like, register, and donate.
Okay,
yeah, we'll put a banner on that right down here. So big. Everyone will see it.
And probably the next most important thing people can do is child sponsorship.
Okay.
Child sponsorship is really the backbone of this organization. It pays for a child for the medical care, their clothing, their education, their food, everything that a child needs to live in a home. Child sponsorship care, and goes directly into the care of it.
And what we're doing now is we're taking names of people who would like to sponsor once we get kids. So we're at Bonazar and Banu Rock, so that when kids come in, that we have sponsors ready for them, so people can actually put themselves on a list for those kids.
Cool. And so so it's not just Zambia; that'll be for Thailand as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And Myanmar. We also have a project in Myanmar.
Yeah.
So, do you have a rough idea of how many kids are sponsored at this point?
Well, in Banu Rock and there isn't any, but I would say we're probably short about 80 sponsors. But our kids have 8 sponsors a child. That's what it costs them to live at.
Well, that's a good thing to know. So it's really a joining part of a team to really
raise that child. Yeah.
It costs about $300 for a child to live at a facility, because it includes the caregivers' wages, includes medication, includes the power to the house, like all these things add up, and we broke it down, we divided it up, and that's what it costs.
But we are expecting at Banu Rock and Bonazar, it's going to cost us quite a bit more there, because we are putting our kids in private school, because we want them to have Christian education, as we think, we need to get them as much gospel as we can.
Sure, in a Buddhist nation where the dialogue is complete, it's not even deity focused, right? It's very self-help, new age, that doesn't have this understanding of a savior.
Right.
So, which in coming out of the darkest parts of our world, you need that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you do.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? That's fantastic. I know we Cedar Valley, like you said, we've got some history, we've got some connection. As a church, we want to be supporting and sponsoring of this kind of work internationally, like God changing people's lives constantly. It changes our lives back home, right? One thing I want to ask you, and it's a thing that we can do in our discussions, if you're watching the home church, if you have people over at your house right now watching in the living rooms, ponder on this kind of stuff, because this is what we're going to be applying after the service today. But with your experiences, the stuff you've learned, I mean, I love the opportunities to travel internationally to do ministry like this, but it doesn't happen every day for me. I think you guys have spent the longest time you have in Canada now, this 7-month stretch.
Yeah, we got our wings clipped.
Yeah. For some of us, it's like maybe once every 10 years we can get a chance to do a trip like that. But what advice would you give us that we could apply for our own lives missionally, like just here in Mission or Abbotsford or Chilliwack?
I think right now people are ripe for the harvest, if that makes sense. That COVID has brought a lot of fear amongst people. And so I think people are more open to the gospel than they've ever been, because they need to know, because they have no control, right? But God, God has it all. So I think that they can invite people, into their homes to watch church, to,
right. Hey, yeah, that's what we're talking about massively as a church, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just think, their next door neighbor, get a loaf of bread, like just put a little thing, you know what? I live next door. Just let you know, I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you. Like, how are you doing? Like just checking in with people, because it's actually a avenue for the gospel, just to check in with them, to say, can I pray? Is there something I can pray for you for?
The gospel is all about relationships and building relationships and crossing, coming out of your comfort zone. As sometimes we feel uncomfortable introducing ourselves to our neighbor, uncomfortable introducing ourselves to a coworker, uncomfortable sharing the gospel. Well, that's what Jesus calls us to do. Calls us to share the gospel, to be friends, even to those that we might not have things in common with. Right? But God calls us to these people. It's really exciting.
Yeah, to everyone, right? Like that's the Great Commission right there in Matthew. To go, and I'll just do a little translate there. This word we're using, gospel, right? Good news. It's literally the translation. It's the good news that there's a God who loves you, that He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to save us from the darkest things that are happening all around the world, from the fear, from COVID, really. Both literally, physically, mentally, because you're saying, I mean, here in Canada, where we have all the social support and all the things that we need to protect us, and there's still a huge amount of fear and frustration, anxiety, and like people are losing their minds in this. Right,
and they need to know that God says, He's ordained all our days before one of them come to be, right? So our lives are really, literally in His hands. He already knows the day. So we can rest in knowing that God is with us. And I think in saying that we need to reach out to our neighbors, we also need to make sure everyone in our church is okay, in our church family. If there's somebody that lives alone, we need to reach out to them. We need to make sure they're okay.
Yeah, amen. Before we go, is there any other thoughts? I just want to make sure that we haven't dropped anything off that you still have on your hearts that you want to share out. And
I just want to say hi, Cedar Valley.
I want to say
so many of our friends.
Thank you, Cedar Valley. 25 years you guys have been encouraging us. There were times we really needed encouragement. There were times that we didn't know what we're doing and how we're going to do it. And we've always had prayer support. We've had words of encouragement. We've had financial support. And we just want you to know, and friends, we just want you to know, we appreciate you. You've always helped us. You've always met the needs that we've had. And you've always welcomed us here, gave us the pulpit, and gave us these seats now. But we've always felt welcome. We always felt at home. And this is our family. And thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
We're so happy to have you here too. This testimony is also powerful, like you're saying, to support each other in the church community, sharing the way God is at work through us. And even when we just serve ourselves and watch God go in our lives, is massively supporting for our brothers and sisters too, for a path. When just ending off here, can I pray for you guys?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so join me in that, Cedar Valley. God, thank you for the passion that you give us, and especially here, John and Sue Chalkis. God, thank you for John and Sue, that you've inspired them to have a heart, your heart, God, and see kids that the world has discarded, people that the world has discarded, dumped babies. What a term. That, God, how else can we describe your gospel, your good news, the testimony of your salvation, than seeing what the world has cast aside, and then you said, no, there's a miracle in every single one of these lives. Mm-hmm. So God, I just continue, or I want to pray that you continue to bless Seeds of Hope all around the world, the international ministries. They've got Myanmar, Thailand, Zambia, the project that's being built here for trafficked children, God, that it is smooth sailing in every way possible. And as we've heard here too, there's a massive financial need. So God, I just pray that you show us in our lives where we have that excess that we can just give into your mission, God, your kingdom, and support people around the world. God, I pray that the gala goes incredibly well, that Seeds of Hope doesn't even see a blip in their ability to operate, and they can just be open-handed and free going after your vision and your people, God. So we lift Seeds of Hope up to you, God, and we expect and we have seen your incredible blessing. We pray all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Grant. Really.
Thank you.